And welcome everybody to our Daily Gun Show. Come be live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns for an hour. So I'm not feeling perfect today, a little bit under the weather, and we've just been in a pretty epic off-air conversation for I think about 3 hours. So I'm just going to kind of wrap up and do a show for the people that might be waiting for our Daily Gun Show tonight. If somebody's out there that really wants to jump in, let me know. But we've just been chatting for the last 3 hours with the 12 of the people that are going to SHOT Show this year from gun channels, and attempting to progress accomplish whatever we can accomplish as a group, as a team, going there. And I think we've got a unique situation compared to some other multiplayer, multi-person groups that go to SHOT. Oftentimes they're under the same banner, so they're just going to attack the show a different way. Maybe one person will be tasked with some area or some team or something, but with a bunch of people going with their own ambitions and their own projects, it'll be neat to see what we can accomplish working just a little bit together and sharing resources and skill sets and opportunities and stuff, and offering some advice, hopefully, and getting some insight. And it turned out I was hoping to do a little bit of that live and a little bit off air, but the people jumped in and we started sinking our teeth into it, and it was all good stuff. And some of it's private. It's all private, but some of it's private for good reasons, and some of just for stupid security reasons or whatever, just so that everybody doesn't know our business. But I'm trying to, we'll see if we got some interesting stuff happening this year too. So we'll leave it at that. And then I guess I'll wind it up. So I didn't even send out any links. So I'm watching the chat here. I'm on the duck tonight. I guess my duck grounding is over. So it was the quickest thing to sign on with today. If anybody wants to leave a comment or something, I can address it. Otherwise, it'll be a fairly quick show. Wasn't feeling too well when we started this 3-hour talk, and they all just sat there silently, so I had to chat the whole time. And now I'm tired, so I'm going to not talk for a while. With that, it is episode 1004, and it's January 8th. So we had a couple of 3 things to talk about over on the guncalendars.com. Been doing that series where we look at today in history, basically today in gun history. And not every day do we have something in the calendar, but we do have stuff on the 8th. So we'll go in, I guess, some order. We'll start with the Tucson situation. So there was a murder happened here in Tucson back in 2011, and it was interesting. So it was politically motivated, and for political reasons, the murderer decided to use a firearm and used a specific type of firearm based on their impression of how it would be immortalized by the media. So it was an intentional manipulation, and it was successful, and it was sad in multiple levels. Now it touches us only because of the Tucson facility, proximity or whatever. I have been doing the gun website stuff since 2004. One of the first websites we started, we now have 300 or something. We started with just a couple, and one of the first ones was one called TucsonShooting.com, and it was an informational website that started in 2004, 5 maybe, but probably 2004 when we first started. And the goal of our company, the goal of our everything we do has been to provide a buffer, provide grease in the wheels, or the relationships between individuals and government, and especially for wilderness stuff, hunting and doing stuff outdoors, shooting. Recreational shooting here in Tucson is a big deal. We have a lot of shared public land, and it's periodically highly contested who's control of who has control of the private land, the public land, or whose use of the public land is most valid or something, right? So we have different pushes to block all use of public land. We'd have challenges to remove recreational shooting from public land, and we built the Tucson Shooting website to archive some of that data, because even back then it was happening in waves and I could see it, and it was already getting confusing. So I figured, I guess even back then, that one of the first things we can do useful on the internet is provide information and offer a non-biased look at something that I had interest in, and that happened to be the legality of shooting in the Tucson public areas. So anyway, we had this website called Tucson Shooting. It was basically a Tucson-focused Second Amendment advocacy website. I guess that was a faster way to say it. And when this murder happened, that the media is intent on taking our words from us, so they're going to call it the Tucson Shooting. It affected my website quite a bit. So I was sitting there 6 years into the game and thought I knew everything, because everybody does when they're 5 years into something. So I thought I knew everything that could ever happen, until something like that happened. And immediately it affected the traffic to that website. And obviously people were going there for a different intent than what they were encountering there. And it was, it wasn't good or bad. I mean, it was bad the way that it happened and the reason that it happened and all that, but it was not necessarily a good consequence or a bad consequence. It just was a bunch of turbulence, and it was an experience. And like many experiences, you gain knowledge from it. But so anyway, it was just happened to be one that couldn't be missed on our radar. It disrupted our whole strategy. That website from then on was useless. So for 6 years, it provided good information about the recreational shooting situation here in Tucson, in the relationships between, for example, BLM, National Forest, National Park, State Park, national or state land. We have stuff that's just called state land. Basically, the schools own it, and each of those levels or types of control over the public lands have different jurisdictions, but have different requirements and abilities to carry and to hunt. And then, of course, we have the nations. There's sovereign nations here. So Tucson's an interesting place. We have a basin here that has effect by all of those I mentioned, including the reservations, so and the city of Tucson. So there's lots and lots of control over the desert out here. And that's that website was forever affected by that situation. Of course, the situation itself is messed up. It was a super left, politically left person who decided that that was something that needed to be done, manipulated the media, and I won't get even more of that. Then we got David Carbine Williams died today, so another sad one. What's that noise? Where am I hearing that noise from? You hearing that noise? Maybe it's the table. So we also have the anniversary of the death of Carbine Williams. That's the dude that invented the M1 carbine. And actually, I need to go find out if I can find that movie anywhere. There's a movie written about his life. I guess he went to jail and invented the components of that gun in jail. And then we got the birthday of Elvis. So save the positive, the best one for last, maybe. And yeah, Elvis. I don't know if you like Elvis to sing it or not, but I think he's pretty cool. What's the word? Like cultural icon, I guess, right in there. So he was a singer and all that, and did all kinds of firsts. And I think I saw that he has more hits than the Beatles and more hits than Michael Jackson. But I guess that's because back in the day they would count a hit as two. If you had a single, a record with a single on it, you'd flip it over. They count both of those as a hit, even though one of them only was a hit, I guess. So I guess it's disputed as whether or not he's got more than the whole Beatles put together. But either way, he's Elvis. Everybody knows who he is. So whether or not you like him as a singer, he was wealthy at the time, and he was a gun owner, and interesting dude. So always been a fan of the story of Elvis, like I say, as a cultural icon or whatever. Definitely a symbol of Americana, and a couple of neat movies out about him. Well, what am I saying? A whole bunch of movies out about Elvis. But the recent one, Elvis versus Nixon, is kind of neat, where Elvis takes a bunch of guns to Nixon at the White House. Pretty cool. So yeah, if you haven't been to Graceland, it's pretty cool. When I went back in the day, they still had his guns there. I should go back again, and because I know they sold his guns or some of his guns. He had a lot of guns. But back in the day, you'd go through his house, basically Graceland, and I'm pretty sure it was a new addition, was a museum, or it might have just been part of his house back in the day. I don't know. But you go through this like big addition to the house, or like a big giant garage type of thing, and that's a museum. And out in that museum is where you see his guns and his badges and stuff. You got a bunch of his jumpsuits out there. And then you'd walk outside and see the shed kind of building thing that he used to shoot into. That was a backdrop. And then I think they even had a whole bunch of the spent cartridges on the ground from wherever he was shooting. And that's just in his backyard. And Graceland's a big place, but it's really just a big house in an area of houses. It's not like it's kind of a mansion, I guess, but it's not bigger than a lot of Beverly Hills houses for sure. So it's not a huge estate or anything. So he was basically shooting in just a big yard. He wasn't really shooting on a place that was remote, I don't think. But I don't know. So that's as much as I know about Elvis, and it's his birthday. So Viva Las Vegas, right? Let's see. My father-in-law was born on the 6th, 7 on the 7th, Elvis on the 8th. Oh, nice. Well, I should say that Jimmy Stewart played him. See, I don't think I've ever seen the movie. I've seen the what they call like the cover art to the movie, but and I've seen little clips of it on YouTube, but I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm looking forward to it. And that's the movie Carbine Williams. I think it's just called Carbine Williams. Let's see. So we were talking about him because he died today. Elvis was born today, and shit happened in Tucson that we should never forget. I don't bring it up because I relish in it. I bring it up because they blamed the magazine, the capacity of his magazine, and then they blamed his political debate, or the political debate. I think they were trying to blame Rush Limbaugh or something for the fact that, or no, it was at the time, was that when somebody said some kind of political ad went out that had a crosshairs on something, like let's target inflation, and someone misinterpreted that to say that's a violent thing, and this guy took it to some extreme. I don't try to understand, but again, we don't look at it because we care about the act as much as the exploitation and the way that they exploit. Hopefully we'll learn the similar methods they use almost every time. I call it an ambush, but they bring out the same playbook at the same time in reaction, or to exploit every situation like this that they can. And it's our bad if we allow them to keep doing it. With that was from a bunch of stuff that was going on today from Gun History, and that's over on guncalendars.com. Tomorrow is the anniversary of the passing of Melvin Johnson. And then we got Colt dies on Friday, and then Arasaka dies on Sunday. So this is just a whole bunch of people die this month. In fact, Mauser dies next week. Spencer dies next week. Smith from Smith & Wesson dies next week. Neil Knox, anniversary of his death is next week. Then, who's Elisha Kohler? Elisha Collier is one of the first. It is the first flintlock revolver, or the first flintlock revolver. So not the first revolver like we're used to with Colt, but the first flintlock. That many people. Oh, and then Alexander Hendry. Dang, whole bunches of people are going to die the rest of this month. So, isn't that sucky? Probably because of the winter, maybe. You get old and you get the pneumonia. That's probably why this month collects a bunch of deaths. It's got just a few berths. We'll talk about those too. And then we'll talk about some inventions over there and whatever else in the calendar that's gun related. What else do we got going on? I think that's about it for tonight. I am talked out, and I didn't even send out links, so I can't complain. Thanks everybody for joining us. I just wanted to go live for a bit, give you a bit of idea of what was going on. Again, that we had a long 3-hour off-air discussion with the 12 of the 14 people that are going to SHOT Show. And who did we miss? Actually, it was pretty much everybody except for Armentia, which I'm sure Clover's going to relay, and Marco. So yeah, pretty much everybody that's going to SHOT was off air in a chat we just had there for 3 hours. They weren't all there for 3 hours, but most of us were there for 3 hours. We've got people that are booths. We've got people that are going as industry, right? For businesses, and then we've got a bunch of us that are going as media from all different kinds of entities or projects. So looking forward to it. It looks like we're going to be going to at least 4 probably or more different shoots, different types of shooting events, maybe even 5. And then who knows how many after events. So hopefully we'll see some, well, I know you're going to see some interesting new coverage as well. And with that, thanks for watching.